This is Just a Thought, episode number 37. Anyway. Good evening. I've been thinking about a story that my daughter brought home the other day and we read it together. It wasn't my first time hearing this story, but as I read it this time, it struck me as so interesting. It's a story about a man who set out on a journey with his son and their donkey. Maybe you've heard this story. It's one of Aesop's fables. But in some versions of this story, they were going to sell the donkey. And in other versions, they were headed to town to sell their goods. And in some of the other ones, they were headed to buy supplies. But either way, they were traveling along. And the man and the boy were walking alongside the donkey when they passed some people who laughed at them and said, "You fools, what is a donkey for but to ride upon?" And so, feeling sheepish, the man and his son climbed on the donkey and continued on their journey. But soon enough, they passed more people who seemed angry as they yelled, "Aren't you ashamed of yourself for overloading that poor donkey of yours, you and your son?" The man was very embarrassed and he hopped off so that the donkey would only be carrying his son. But soon enough, they passed another group of people who talked and pointed, "Look at that lazy young man riding while his father trudges along. How selfish and sad." So the man traded places with his son and they continued on. Now the people must be satisfied, he thought to himself. But as they came close to another group, he heard more people talking. Have you ever seen anything like that? What a father to make his poor boy run on foot while he himself rides along on the donkey. This story ends in a few different ways, depending on which version you're reading. But the ending I like best is when the father says to his son something like, "We've learned an important lesson today. It's impossible to please everyone. And when we try to, we please no one, including ourselves. So we must do what we think is best." Then the man got off the donkey, and he and the boy walked into town the way they had begun their journey, walking alongside the donkey. So it just is a story that teaches us that ultimately we get to decide what is right for us. I believe that we have the light of Christ within us, our conscience, that helps us to know if what we're doing aligns with who we really are. And when we're not, we don't feel good inside. It brings me a lot of peace and motivation to believe that. And as parents and humans, we receive conflicting information about everything. It's tricky to know what's best for us. But we're not responsible for others' happiness, and we are the only person responsible for our own happiness. That's why I love using the model as a tool to be more intentional and show up in life and parenting in a way that feels right to me. For example, sometimes I want to feel anxiety about the way my family looks when we go to church. I know there are lots of different thoughts around going to church and what dress and timing are appropriate and respectful for church. And because there are lots of different thoughts about it, and because I tend to attach my worth to the validation I receive from others, I sometimes get anxiety because I believe some different contradictory things, which I actually think is super normal. So here are my thoughts. I believe that what I wear sends a message to others about my intentions and my role. For example, if I'm in a swimsuit, I think most people would assume I'm going to swim or at least be around water. If I'm wearing a bicycle helmet, in my opinion, it would be odd if I didn't have a bike to ride or something like that. And if I was going to work in an office, it's usually expected in my mind that I would wear a professional style outfit. The same goes for church. Dressing in professional or semi-formal clothing for church tells people around me that what I'm doing is important to me. But then there's the other side of it, just like a coin. The side where we look at each other and compare and try to stack each other above or below us based on appearance. And I know that happens sometimes. And I also know that what a person wears doesn't define their worth or their faith, but sometimes it feels that way, right? And so we want to go to another extreme of, well, it doesn't matter what you wear, it matters what's on the inside. But really, both things matter to me. So if I want to use the model to get myself unstuck in this scenario where I'm feeling torn between two contradictory ideas, I like to ask myself, what is it exactly that I want? In this particular example, I want myself, my children, and my husband to be wearing clean, matching, neat, semi-formal clothing, have nicely trimmed and fixed hair, and be on time for church. But I also want to be more concerned about where my heart is than what anyone is wearing or not wearing, or what time they walk into the building. But I want both things, so I acknowledge both as important to me. And then I ask, what would be different for me if I had it? Well, if my family and I showed up to church on time next Sunday and we were all wearing clean, matching, neat, semi-formal clothing and had nicely trimmed and fixed hair, then we hopefully wouldn't be disruptive to the meeting or be distracting to anyone, which that thought actually makes me laugh because there I go jumping into other people's models. The truth is, we might be distracting if we looked nice because we looked so nice. So there's that. There's just no way out of it, right? So my next question is, how will I feel once I have that? Well, I would feel organized and respectful. How can I access that feeling right now, even without changing the circumstance? And this one is sometimes tricky for me, but in this example, I can decide I am organized and respectful, and that I'm worthy of respect, and so are others around me, no matter what we're wearing or not wearing. I can also remember that I can still try to show up in a certain way because I want to. That's totally okay. It's okay to want to wear certain clothes and to want my family to wear those things too. Some other thought model exercises I can do are think about people or situations or things I'm wanting to avoid and ask, why do I want to avoid this? What would I feel if I couldn't avoid it? What is the emotion I'm really avoiding? What would change if I believed I could handle feeling that way? Overall, the emotions I'm seeking are, and overall, the emotions I am avoiding are. So hopefully those questions are helpful in untangling your thought dilemmas. These exercises have been a great way for me to hone in on what I actually think and what I actually want. And it makes problems that seem so big and scary really deflate. Every circumstance is different and every thought has a purpose. I was thinking the other day about how some thoughts can seem like contradictions until we find where the common ground is. For example, I was thinking how as Christians facing trials, we might sometimes ask ourselves, do I have enough faith to live if I'm hoping for healing or for faith to move forward with something challenging? Or I might ask, do I have enough faith to die? But then in another circumstance, I might ask, am I willing to die for my faith? Or am I willing to live for my faith? Anyways, I just thought that was kind of interesting. Hopefully that example isn't too confusing. I'm coming to the end of my thought, but I recently read Mother Teresa's poem Anyway, and it struck me as a wonderful way to bundle all these thoughts together today. She says, people are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and frank, people may cheat you. Be honest and frank anyway. What you spend years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give the world the best you've got anyway. You see, in the final analysis, it is between you and your God. It was never between you and them anyway. So, Here's to you and I working on showing up in a way that feels right to us. This is Christina Stead. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a disciple of Jesus Christ. He loves you, He loves me, and He loves us. This is Just a Thought, a podcast for parents ready to change their mind and change their lives.